I'm Erin Lawler-Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm a podcaster, motivational speaker, author, counselor, and proud part of the Mental Health News Radio Network. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing mental health, addiction, raising kids, and giving back. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. So today's episode, so excited. I have a fellow Florida resident, Bridget Hennessy, who is actually a native of New Jersey as well, like myself. Bridget, I want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So you are, your official title, if I'm gonna do all official titles here, you're the director of PACT Prevention Coalition in St. Johns County, Florida, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so kind of getting a little bit of a flashback here. Our paths crossed, how many years ago? What year of high school were you in?
I would say 2006. I met you as soon as I got into high school.
So it was your freshman year, right? It was kind of freshman year. Oh my gosh, it's like, woo, okay, transported back. So our paths cross, and I always think about how crazy life is, where looking at what you're doing now, and was it yesterday? Feels like longer than that ago. You pretty much facilitated and ran a town hall in your community, correct?
Yes.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what the focus was with that and kind of what the mission and objective was?
Yeah, sure. So 2 years ago, I held my first town hall, and what I try to express to people, I get questions often, what can I do in terms of the opioid crisis? Right. You know, we're losing loved ones, especially our young kids that are between 19 to 35. I mean, I feel like I hear something every single day about someone that we lose. And they're like, what can we do? And I know it may seem really intimidating as one person, what difference can I make? But you can start a town hall in your county. You don't need to be an executive director of a nonprofit that works with prevention. You can just be the average citizen that's concerned. So anyways, I went about this by going to the sheriff's department and saying, hey, obviously we have an opioid crisis, not just in St. Johns County, but in our entire country. And we really should get a discussion about it, not just with our professionals that are in the prevention and treatment field, but why not just with everybody? The average community member, they might not know these fancy terms that the doctors use, but they sure want to volunteer, and they have hands and they have hearts and they have minds that can contribute. So 2 years ago, we did the opioid crisis, and that was really just laying down what it is. Statistics, I think we lost 39 people in our county in 2017 to a drug overdose. I mean, for a small county, that is just horrific, that number. And so that was really the discussion, and then kind of introducing what my coalition does and kind of community partners, how do we work together. So this year, I did want to talk about fentanyl, because a lot of people, they hear that word and they're like, I don't know what that is. I know about the opioid crisis, but I really don't know what fentanyl is. And I know we talked about what fentanyl was at the town hall, but we really, really focused on the hope. So we started off, and this is how I imagined the night to go, and it worked out perfectly. And I'm so, so thankful for our guest speakers. We had a woman who lost her son. His name is Matt. He passed away when he was 32 years old, and she gave her story of the struggle and the story of Matt and what addiction really means to her, and that it is a disease, and that we need to drop the stigma, because stigma is keeping people from getting help. It's keeping families from talking. And so then we went on to a panelist discussion, and we had someone from the school district, 2 treatment centers, and 1 center really focuses on behavioral and mental health, which we all know is another issue that needs to be more focused on and get more funding. Yeah. We had the sheriff's department, and I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, our local hospital. And all of them can bring in different perspectives for fentanyl and the opioid crisis. And then at the very end of it, we had Randy Grimes, who used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he was pretty much saying throughout his entire career, he had a 20-year-long pill addiction because he would get so hurt on the field. and he would just medicate himself by taking pills so he can get back in the groove of things on the field.
It was a powerful story, man. It was
so powerful. Yeah. And I wanted him to end it because he had the story of hope, because he's sober and he's happy and he's speaking to all these people about, hey, if I can get help, you can get help. Right. And I think people left feeling positive, like, okay, the opioid epidemic is not going to win. We're gonna get ourselves back in the game and hopefully save lives.
Right. And really that's kind of like one of the focuses I think we need to have, where you said, like, there's people that don't know what fentanyl is, or we hear opioid crisis, and making it personal, which I think you guys were able to accomplish with the town hall night. And I think the more personal we make it, the more possibility we have of connecting with people to say, like, listen, this is everywhere. This is widespread. And just like you said, it feels like every day we lose somebody else. And how many people, it's somebody's best friend, somebody's daughter, somebody's brother, somebody best friend. And it's personalizing it. And I do want to ask you, because putting the word of epidemic to it is so out there on a national level, but I know this really hits home for you. Why did you get into this field?
Yeah, sure. So when we first met, when I was a freshman in high school, of course, I loved you and I was able to open up to you about whatever, but I really just didn't have like problems in my life. I had never had anyone really close to me pass away besides a grandparent, which we all kind of understand that pain for the most part. But I never foresaw myself becoming a prevention specialist. So when I was 16, we lost my oldest brother, Matthew, to a drug overdose. He was only 23. And when he passed away, I did not know that's what he passed away from, because the stigma was there. It has nothing to do with my parents. They just did not want to tell me right away. So I was told that his heart stopped, which obviously his heart did stop, but I just didn't know why. And I was confused. I remember thinking, what? He's a healthy 23-year-old. I just saw him 5 days ago. What are you talking about? And eventually they sat me down and they really discussed what was going on. And I just remember thinking, I knew Matthew partied, and I knew he would drink alcohol and smoke weed sometimes. I just did not know the extent of it. And I just feel so bad thinking about my family in 2008 because we weren't able to talk about it. Yeah. And even like my classmates, I just didn't want to tell them because I almost was ashamed and embarrassed, which I should have never been, ever. But in my head, someone who uses heroin or someone who takes pills and abuses them, I used to think they were going down alleyways and they were these people that grew up in broken homes and all this stuff. And it's just not true. I learned that addiction does not discriminate, that it could really happen to any family because it happened to me. So then when that did happen to me, I remember you approaching me like it was yesterday saying, hey, Bridget, I know that you didn't show interest in Drug Squad before, but I just want to let you know, I think you would really find a home here and we would love to have you. And I just remember thinking, I don't think so. I don't think I would fit in and all these things. And I'll tell you what, that was something that saved me in high school. I was absent so many days in high school, my junior and senior year, because I was struggling so hard.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I couldn't really even talk to my closest friends about it, which I could have. I just really, my brain, I just felt like I couldn't, because I was grieving so much. And it's like these people in Drug Squad that I barely knew, or that I've known my whole life but never became friends with them, I was able to relate with them and talk with them. And when I got to college, I still was struggling, and I kind of put all of that behind me. Oh, Drug Squad behind me. And then my junior year of college, I remember thinking, that was really amazing. What I experienced in high school, that was incredible. And what if people feel alone even on my campus? Mm-hmm. What if people feel alone in these high schools? Of course there's going to be people that feel alone because this epidemic is happening. And it's affecting everyone. So that's when I applied for an internship with where I work now. And I thought, what if I could bring a little bit of the Drug Squad magic to St. Johns County? And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. And how you've done that. I mean, I seriously sitting in the back, and I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about what you have been able to accomplish. And you used a term that I was like, I want to make a t-shirt with this term. That was Collateral Beauty. And so you represent that. Explain that, like, for the listeners. What is Collateral Beauty?
Sure. So my parents and I talk about this often, and it's pretty much when you lose somebody that is a sibling, that is immediate family, that's your blood and soul, your best friend, that pain feels like you can't take anything good out of it. Yeah. You don't see that light, you only see the darkness. And then over time, all of a sudden, there's these little speckles of light, and you kind of maybe grab onto one, you grab onto another. And then before you know it, you're doing something like me doing drug prevention programs in my schools. That's Collateral Beauty, because I'm only there because my brother passed away. I love sharing this story. My brother dated someone when he was in high school, and her name's Becky, and she's like a sister to me. And she actually lived with us for a little bit. And even after Matthew passed away, we stayed so close. She ended up moving onto my parents' street, and her kids and her family, they're always over my parents' house. They go on trips together. My parents are almost like grandparents for her children. And we say it's Collateral Beauty because we're able to share this life with someone that Matthew connected, and his energy is in them, and he's in our energy. And it's just like, we're able to find this beautiful thing in the worst thing that's ever happened to us.
Yeah. And I think that's a really hard concept to digest, especially when, you know, the initial loss, it's just like it knocks the wind out of you. And I do think at some point, everyone that has lost somebody that's very close to them, sibling, close family member, it is making that choice, because it's so easy to kind of lapse into just a haze or a funk, or just kind of going through cruise control. And I do believe when we make that choice, like you had said, to kind of grab onto those little balls of goodness, we'll call it, or good, you know, the light, those pieces of that person, and use it as a fuel to make an impact in whatever capacity. I believe, like, I think about Matthew, and I think about, you know, my sister Shayna, and to think, like, if I was sitting down with them right now at the table, right, how very proud they would be. Like, your brother, like, what you've taken, and he is now, like, in so many people, without sounding sure, like that memory, the message, the beauty. And I think how many people that, you know, are no longer here, that baton was never picked up by another person, which makes me sad. But sitting back in that town hall yesterday, or whatever day, my brain
Wednesday,
Wednesday, sorry, I don't know what today is.
No, it's fine.
It's my, you know, 41, this is what happens. But it's wow. And so to that person that, you know, that might be listening today, I think, you know, how many people have had loss that it's like nobody understands. And I you know, even when I sat with you when you're in high school, like, we both lost siblings, but I don't know exactly how you feel. And I'll never say I know how you feel, but saying, you know, using that hurt to kind of continue the goodness, and that collateral beauty that just with your family and with your brother is a spectacular thing. And I don't know if you've ever sat back and said, like, holy cow, all the different things. Like, have you ever sat back and been like, what? Like, and it makes you cry, and it's a sadness, but it's also,
I always try to look at it, you know, things that happen in your life. For me, I almost have this timeline of before Matthew and after Matthew, and that's just the way my life is now pictured in my head. But I just think there are things in life that are going to happen to you, and they're going to break your heart, and they're going to make you see a side of yourself that you never even knew that you had. But it can make you bitter, or it can make you better.
Yeah.
And it might take time, and there's no book on grieving. I just remember thinking, when am I going to have my biggest breakdown? When am I going to be, you know, all these things? And then I'll randomly have these breakdowns once in a while. Even to this day, it feels like yesterday, but also feels like forever. And it's just, death is such a hard concept that I'm not sure my brain will ever grasp. But the one thing I can grasp is helping people. Yeah. What can I do? Who can I talk to? And it's not just my job. It's me being a good friend. It's me telling my friends, don't drink and drive. Mm-hmm. Hey, you can sleep over, or like, I'll pay for your Uber, or whatever it might be. There's these little messages, and I try to tell people the power in your voice and your stance. If someone says something mean, or someone is about to do an action that isn't correct, like drinking and driving, it is your duty as a friend to stand up to it. And who knows, maybe everyone else in the room wants to stand up to it too, but they're just too nervous or they're just too scared. And I will tell this to kindergartners, high schoolers. I will tell this to a 72-year-old, stand up for what you think, because what's going to happen if something does terrible happen to that person and you were there and you didn't help? You know, that's going to change your life forever. There's really no one in prevention that I have met that hasn't had, you know, a heartbreaking story.
Din, 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 din.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no one in prevention that I've met that doesn't have this heartbreaking story of I just needed to do something. But there's also people that I meet that are addicted to opioids or whatever it may be, and their family member has passed away from it, or their best friend is addicted too, and it's almost like their death happened and in results they got addicted. You know, they might have grabbed the bottle or whatever it may be. And I just hope that everyone knows it's never too late to be the person you always wanted to be. Kids that are talking to me about drug and alcohol prevention, I'm not asking for the goody two-shoe kids. I'm also saying, hey, if you messed up or you did something that you're not proud of or doesn't feel like it's in your character or you just want to change, let's do it. You know, there's no judgment here. And that's kind of what the stigma, dropping the stigma can do. That there's no judgment here, and this has happened, but the worst thing you can do is not open up about it and get yourself help, because you deserve that help. And addiction might have taken over your life temporarily, but we can help you become that person. Because when I think of my brother, I don't think of someone who used drugs. You know, I think of this smile and his presence and all the skills and talents that he had, and he brought so much joy to so many people's life. And I guarantee there's people all the time that think back and go, wow, Matt Heenan, what a guy. Yeah. And I hope and I pray to God that they don't look back and go, wow, he fell off the bandwagon or whatever it may be, because that stigma and using the term like junkie or something like that is so triggering for me. But imagine someone who's trying to get help. That is a person. And that, like we said, that's a brother, a sister, a friend, a neighbor. It could be a lawyer. It doesn't matter who you are. Addiction can affect families. So I hope, if anything, the best thing we could do is drop stigma and welcome people with open arms. Well,
it's the whole judge-free zone thing, which I've said for years, and it sounds kind of cliche, but it isn't. You know, in that room of 125 people from your hometown, most of those people had a story. I'd say 100% of us, if we're really honest, we know someone who struggled with some form of addiction, even if we've heard about them, air quotes. And it's like when we compartmentalize people of being that person under the bridge, right? Or panhandling or just having no teeth. I think those stigmas are still out there. We are preventing people from not only getting help, right, and pursuing treatment, but from that mom or that sister or that brother or that best friend from feeling like they can open up and talk about it. Yes. Correct? I mean, it's like I know we focus on people who are struggling with addiction, as we should, but you look at the whole family component and there's so many hurting people in every community. You look at within the high school that you went to, right? In the past 2, 3, 4 years, how many people we've lost to addiction? It's ridiculous. And it's like, we need to keep talking about it. We need to remove all these negatives that are just cancerous. I mean, they really are, and toxic. And just listen, we all have our crap, and it's getting help and learning to talk about it.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing that's helped me grieve is obviously like my job. It really has just been a form of grieving, which I never really thought of until a few years ago. And I go, wow, this is really, really, really helping me in a way I've never felt before. But that's what it does when you talk with people. Yep. And so if people who lost someone from addiction, or they have someone who's struggling currently with addiction, if they feel like they have no one to talk to, you just fall into this hole of darkness. And being alone in a situation like that is just the worst thing you could do to yourself. Mm-hmm. Something that was really important for me is the panelists that we chose. I've had people comment on Facebook, of course, behind their keyboards, and they'll just say they did it to themselves, you know, this was their choice or whatever it may be. And of course, that is not what I think. And also, it is actually a disease. So science says it's a disease. So really, their opinion doesn't matter is what people say. For me, it does matter because it continues that stigma. So what we did is we're trying to get the perspective of all different angles. And one of them is, you know, prenatal abstinence syndrome. And these are the babies being born addicted to opioids because the mother was using. And so I'm just like, if you're trying to tell me you don't care, are you not caring about these babies that are being born addicted to opioids? And some people, it opens their eyes a bit. Oh, wow, never thought about that. And it's just, even taxpayers' dollars. I honestly hate bringing this point up because for me, it's all about the people, it's about the people. But the money that we spend on treatment and, incarcerations and things like that versus what we spend on prevention, the difference is ridiculous. No one wants to pour money into prevention because you don't necessarily see the results. You don't see the kids making good choices. Right. You don't know if you're the reason they made the good choice. So it's really, really hard for us to get funding that isn't, people go, oh, prevention money was given out, it was funded. And as I was telling you earlier, there's two different types of prevention. So the prevention that the money goes towards is the prevention of death. So that's when someone's already using and then they end up having to go to classes or drug court or whatever it may be. That's prevention. We're trying to prevent them from using again. My prevention is you never used in the first place. So, I've had kindergarten teachers ask me to come and talk to their kids about drugs and alcohol. That was unheard of when I first started my job. So the earlier the better, but without money, it's really hard. And without, I want to say even without support, because with money, I can find my way. But if I don't have community support, if I don't have people believing, yes, this could happen to my kid. Yes, I need to talk to my kid. Not just once. Oh, we had the drug talk that one time at dinner. Right. It should be a regular thing so that, you raised your kid talking about these things. So by the time they are 16 and 17, they're not completely thrown off or embarrassed when you bring up drugs and alcohol. They're like, oh, we've always talked about this. So I'm hoping I can also be that conversation starter for parents. Say, hey, ask your kids, what is their goals and what are your natural highs in life and how can drugs and alcohol get in the way of that? It's just so important, and it shouldn't be this taboo subject that parents are scared to talk about with their kids.
Yeah, I think it's laying the groundwork as early as possible. If we wait till even high school at this point, middle school, at this point, or high school, it's like, the ship's already left the port, man. Yeah. I mean, they've
average drinking age is 6th grade.
Yeah. Yeah. And look at the average vaping age, and then you throw in like the access with the cell phone and YouTube and all these different social media platforms that they're like getting exposure to all these things younger and younger, where the message of it's cool, whether it's popping pills or drinking. And it's like, well, not my 4th grader or my 5th grader. And we need to start earlier, and kindergarten, man, is ideal. It absolutely is making it a normal conversation that's not weird or uncomfortable. And talking.
And you don't have to, go into the major details.
No, it's where it's age appropriate. Yeah, it's age appropriate.
Like making healthy choices. And honestly, we all kind of need that little talk. I would even talk with my peers, and some of them say, oh, well, I remember in college, they would be like, oh, I'm using Adderall for finals week, but they don't use Adderall. They're not prescribed if they get it. And one, obviously you should just not be taking prescription medication. That is not prescribed to you. But two, what's really interesting is I say, how do you feel the week after? Because I'm curious, does that mess with your serotonin and dopamine levels? Do you feel depressed? And some people go, I never even linked that. I always think I'm exhausted or whatever. Little do they know these, brain chemicals are getting messed with. People are committing suicide because they use drugs. And I'm not saying they're even using it regularly. They might have just said, oh, I did Molly at a rave. And then 3 weeks later, I did Molly again because I went to a concert. And then all of a sudden, their life seems to be crumbling apart. And they've never experienced anxiety before. And all of a sudden, they have it. Sorry, let's see.
Kingdom.
And all of a sudden they have it. And so I try just raising awareness. Hey, look, I'm not going to lecture you. I'm not your parent or your teacher or whatever, but just be aware of how your body's reacting to these things and realize I'm not saying these things just because I'm paid to say them. It's just the truth.
But Bridge, I'm going to interrupt you and say that's a conversation nobody has.
Yeah.
Within schools, if you think about it, Adderall, I remember having conversations with students who would say, I was taking it, and not prescribed, but it'd say, how's your sleep doing? How is this, when you're in gym class, you get out of breath easier, and you could see the wheels spinning but it's been like a week since I've taken it. But when we don't dialogue about that, and again, like recreational users, and where you get this, these bout with depression or anxiety, and I've never felt this surge before. Well, it's connected to something. And that dialogue that you're having is so important.
I just try to be realistic and tell the kids, I'm not here just because, I'm not here to make up lies. I'm not like, say no to drugs.
That goes over very well. Yes.
Exactly. So I'm just trying to be realistic. I mean, look, if we tell kids don't smoke weed or don't use heroin, and then, which is, I know, I just like jumped the gun, but
no, but it's true. When we say don't and wave our fingers, it backfires.
And then what happens when they try it and the first time is actually great?
Mm-hmm. What
happens when they get that high? I mean, you'll never talk to a heroin addict that says, oh, the first time I did heroin was horrible and that's why I stopped. It starts off amazing, and it really isn't until the aftermath that things start really crashing down on them.
And then they're hooked. Yeah.
I think if we tell kids, oh, it's from day one, it's just the worst thing ever, and then they do it, they'll think we're lying. They'll just think, oh, everything's false, and now I can just try these things out. So I try to do my methods. I'm honest with guidance counselors. Hey, this is how I talk to kids. But it's just true. Kids can read when you're BSing them.
Okay? Yes. .com, .org, .net. Yeah.
They are not stupid. I remember rolling my eyes during some type of, presentations. So we really need to be genuine with them. And if you don't actually feel the way that you feel, go and do something else, because you're going to be read right through. So, and that's with anybody, I don't need to just be talking to kids. I tell them, I talk to you guys the exact same way I talk to my friends.
Yeah.
So I'm not going in babying them. And I just try to put like a positive spin, because I just think fear tactics aren't the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, rock on. And I think it is being honest, and it's getting on their level. And I think for too long, we've almost adhered to the reefer madness kind of mentality, where like you smoke weed, you're going to run around with a machete and kill people. Or if you do this the first time, and it's inaccurate, and saying there's risk involved, but I think kind of the whole mentality of, make good decisions. And if you screw up, we just kind of get back up and keep going. And, I say with what you're doing with prevention, with your friends, your family members, your community, keep going. And for anyone who's listening that might be kind of walking the fence a little bit and saying like, my voice doesn't matter, I will tell you, re-listen to this episode, get stoked and pumped up again. Your voice, and I'm going to promise you, Bridge, that you have saved lives. And to kind of take a step back, and we're like, oh, we have saved lives. Where you're not only, gosh, are you honoring your brother and continuing, his memory? And just it's such a beautiful thing. But every voice, when we stay quiet, which too many people do because it's easy, right? We are missing out. We are missing out, and so are other people. So I say to you, keep your voice strong. Don't doubt yourself, and knowing that you can also be collateral beauty. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I want to say, Bridge, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your heart, your mission, and your words, girl. I am honored to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. And right back at you, girl. And I want to say to everybody listening, wishing you all the peace, love, and goodness, my friends.
If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to visit goodnesschick.com and sign up for my newsletter, providing insights and encouragement just for you. Thanks for listening, my friends.